The crystal chandelier cast warm light across the ballroom of the Grandview Hotel, its elegant glow reflecting off champagne glasses and designer gowns. It was the annual Henderson and Associates charity gala, the kind of event where business mingled with philanthropy, where deals were made over canapes and connections, were worth more than the $1,000-a-plate dinner. Robert Mitchell stood near the edge of the crowd, nursing a glass of sparkling water and feeling distinctly out of place. At 48, he was comfortable in his role as senior, project coordinator at Henderson and Associates, but these formal affairs always made him feel like he was wearing someone else's clothes. His suit was off the rack, pressed carefully that morning by his own hands. His shoes were polished but practical. He was here because attendance was expected, not because he belonged to this world of wealth and privilege. His daughter, Lily, was spending the evening with his sister, their usual Friday arrangement that had become sacred over the past 5 years, since the divorce, since everything had fallen apart and then, slowly, painfully, been rebuilt into something new. Robert was scanning the room, calculating how long he needed to stay before he could politely slip away, when he heard the laugh. That particular laugh, bright, sharp, designed to carry across a room and turn heads. He'd know it anywhere. Vanessa. She stood near the bar, elegant in a charcoal gray dress that probably cost more than Robert's monthly mortgage payment. Her dark hair was swept up in an artful style, diamonds glinting at her ears and throat. She looked successful, polished, every inch the corporate attorney she'd become. And on her arm was someone new, a man younger than Robert, wearing a suit that screamed money, his smile confident and easy. Robert's chest tightened. He hadn't known she'd be here. Why would he? They'd been divorced for 5 years. Their communication limited to terse text messages about Lily's schedule. She'd made it clear she wanted nothing to do with the life they'd built together, not the modest house, not the careful budgeting, and certainly not the demands of raising a child. "I didn't sign up to be married to a daycare provider," she'd said during one of their final arguments. "You chose her over your career, over us." "She's our daughter," Robert had replied, exhausted. "She's not a choice. She's a person who needs her father." But Vanessa had already made her choice. She'd climbed her corporate ladder, taken the promotion that required 80-hour weeks, moved into a luxury apartment downtown. Lily spent every other weekend with her, in theory, though in practice it was more like once a month. There was always some urgent case, some important client dinner, some reason why a 9-year-old, now 14, couldn't possibly understand. Robert had learned to be both parents. He'd learned to braid hair and help with algebra homework. He'd learned to pack lunches and attend every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every soccer game. He'd turned down promotions that would have required travel, stuck with his steady position that let him be home by 6 every evening. And he'd been content with that choice, even as it meant his career had plateaued while Vanessa's had soared. He was trying to decide whether to acknowledge her presence or simply leave, when her voice cut through the ambient conversation. "Robert? Oh my goodness, Robert Mitchell!" She was walking toward him, her companion in tow, that bright smile fixed on her face like a weapon. "I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't think—" She paused, her eyes sweeping over his modest suit. "I didn't think this was quite your scene." Robert forced a smile. "Vanessa. Hello. I work for Henderson and Associates. Have for 12 years now." "Oh, of course. I forget you're still in the same position." Her tone was honey-sweet and knife-sharp. "This is Bradley. Bradley Thornton. He's a partner at Thornton and Associates." She said it with pride, like she was presenting a trophy. Bradley extended his hand. "Good to meet you." "Likewise," Robert said, shaking it briefly. "So," Vanessa continued, "how's your little life?" "Still playing Mr. Mom? I hope you're not too exhausted to enjoy the party." She laughed that bright laugh again. "I remember how you used to complain about being tired all the time. Single parenting must be so difficult for you." Robert felt heat rising in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "Lily is wonderful. She's doing well in school, just made honor roll again." "She's happy." "Oh, that's nice." Vanessa's tone suggested she found it anything but interesting. "I really should see her more. It's just so busy, you know. Important cases. Bradley and I just got back from Milan. A client dinner, but we stayed the weekend. You probably can't imagine, but international corporate law is incredibly demanding. I'm sure it is, Robert said quietly. Not like your little project coordination job, she added, her smile never wavering. I mean, it's sweet that you chose to prioritize Lily over your career, but let's be honest. You were never going to set the world on fire anyway. At least this way you have an excuse, right? The words landed like physical blows. Around them, several people had stopped talking, sensing the tension. Robert could feel eyes turning toward them. Vanessa, he began. It's fine, Robert. You don't have to defend yourself. We all make our choices. You chose to be comfortable, safe, to hide, behind parenthood instead of taking risks. Some people are ambitious and some people, she gestured vaguely at him, aren't. There's no shame in knowing your limitations. Robert's jaw tightened. He'd endured 5 years of these little cuts. These subtle and not-so-subtle suggestions that he'd failed somehow, that choosing to be present for his daughter made him less than. But having it happen here, publicly, with witnesses— Excuse me. A voice cut through the tension, clear and firm and undeniably authoritative. Everyone turned. Catherine Henderson stood there, elegant in a cream-colored silk blouse and tailored black pants, her presence commanding despite her modest height. At 55, she was the CEO of Henderson and Associates, a self-made billionaire who'd built her company from nothing, and one of the most respected figures in the industry. Her dark hair was styled simply, pulled back to reveal sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Henderson, Vanessa said, her tone shifting immediately to professional warmth. What a wonderful event. The firm has outdone itself. Catherine didn't acknowledge the compliment. Her eyes were fixed on Robert, and there was something in her expression, anger, perhaps, or determination. She walked directly to Robert and without hesitation placed her hand on his arm. It was a gesture of unmistakable claim, of public alliance. The room seemed to hold its breath. Robert, Catherine said, her voice carrying just enough to be heard by everyone nearby. I apologize for being late, shall we? She turned to face Vanessa, her expression cool and appraising. I don't believe we've met. I'm Catherine Henderson? Vanessa's face had gone pale. Yes, of course, Miss Henderson. I'm Vanessa Mitchell. Well, Vanessa Forrester now. I'm an attorney at— I know who you are, Catherine said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a compliment. She looked at Robert and her expression softened. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to steal Robert away. We have something important to discuss. Of course, Robert managed, his mind reeling. Catherine's hand remained on his arm, as she guided him away from Vanessa and Bradley, away from the small crowd that had gathered. She didn't speak until they'd reached a quieter corner of the ballroom, near the windows overlooking the city lights. I apologize for that, Catherine said quietly. I hope I didn't overstep, but I couldn't stand there and listen to another second of that woman's cruelty. Robert stared at her. Miss Henderson, Catherine, please. We've worked together for over a decade, Robert. I think we're past formalities. She released his arm but remained close, her presence somehow both protective and comfortable. Your ex-wife is a remarkably unpleasant person. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. You heard all of it? Robert felt embarrassment wash over him. Enough, more than enough. Catherine's eyes flashed with anger again. Robert, I want you to understand something. That woman is a fool. An absolute fool. Ms. Henderson, Catherine, you don't have to— Let me finish. Her voice was firm but not unkind. I've watched you for 12 years. I've seen how you handle every project with care and precision. I've seen how you mentor younger employees, how you solve problems others can't even identify. I've seen you leave at exactly 5:30 every single day, and I've never once doubted your commitment or your value to this company. Robert felt his throat tighten. But more than that, Catherine continued, I've watched you be a father. Do you know how many times? I've seen you on phone calls with your daughter during lunch, helping her with homework. How many times you've rescheduled meetings to make it to her school events. I know because I pay attention, Robert. And every single time I've thought, there is a man who understands what actually matters. She paused, her expression softening even further. My own father was a CEO, very successful, very respected, very absent. I saw him maybe an hour a day, if that. He died when I was 16, and I realized I barely knew him. All that success, all that ambition, and what did it mean? He missed my childhood. He missed me. Robert didn't know what to say. You didn't choose your daughter over your career, Robert. You chose to have both, just in different proportions than people like your ex-wife can understand. And that choice, that dedication, that presence, Catherine shook her head. That takes more courage and strength than climbing any corporate ladder. That's not hiding from ambition. That's having your priorities straight. Thank you, Robert said quietly. That means more than you know. Catherine smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. Your daughter is a lucky young woman, and this company is lucky to have you. She glanced back toward where Vanessa still stood, looking uncertain and diminished. Don't let anyone make you feel small for choosing love over status, especially not someone who chose the opposite, and is clearly miserable despite all the trappings of success. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, looking out at the city lights. Can I ask you something? Robert said. Of course. Why did you do that? The public support. You could have just pulled me aside privately. Catherine considered this. Because she was publicly humiliating you. Because I wanted everyone in that room to understand that I value you, that this company values you. And because, she paused, because sometimes people need to see that kindness and decency are worth more than ruthless ambition. I built a billion-dollar company, Robert. I could have done it the way your ex-wife would have, trampling over people, sacrificing every relationship, measuring success only in money and power. But I didn't. I built it with people like you, good people, present people, people who understand that success means nothing if you're alone at the top. Robert felt tears prick his eyes and blinked them away. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just keep being exactly who you are. Keep being the father Lily deserves. Keep being the colleague we all depend on. That's enough. That's more than enough. As the evening wore on, Robert noticed something interesting. People kept approaching him. Colleagues he'd worked with for years. Executives. He barely knew. They wanted to talk, to share their own stories of balancing work and family, of making difficult choices, of feeling judged. Catherine's public gesture had opened something up, created permission for honesty. And Vanessa? She left early, Bradley in tow, her confident smile replaced with something tighter, more fragile. When Robert finally drove home that night, the city lights blurring past his windows, he thought about what Catherine had said, about presence and priorities, about courage and choice. He'd spent 5 years doubting himself, wondering if Vanessa was right, if he'd taken the easy way out, if he'd failed somehow by not choosing ambition over everything else. But tonight, the most successful person in that entire ballroom had told him the truth. He'd chosen right. He'd chosen love. He'd chosen Lily, and that was enough. More than enough. When he got home, he paid his sister and checked on Lily, who was already asleep. He stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her breathe, her face peaceful in the dim light from the hallway. 14 years old now, growing up so fast. But still his little girl? Tomorrow she'd tell him about her evening. And he'd tell her about the gala, the parts she'd understand anyway. He'd tell her about Ms. Henderson standing up for him, about how sometimes the world recognizes what really matters. But mostly he'd just be there, present, steady, the way he'd always been, the way he'd always be. And that, Robert thought as he headed to his own room, was the only kind of success that actually mattered.